Welcome to T News 9 channel. My wife is a gangster. Chapter 1. Welcome to my new home. I thought I married a woman. Turns out, I married the mafia. I always thought moving to a new country like Japan would be the hardest thing I'd ever do. You know, learning a new language, figuring out a completely new culture, starting a whole new life. But I was so wrong. The hardest part wasn't Japan at all. The hardest part was the slow, dawning realization that my sweet, quiet wife, while she basically owned the entire neighborhood. Our car pulled up to her family estate, and these massive gates just swung open on their own. And there, standing in perfect, intimidating lines, were more than 30 men, all dressed in sharp black suits. They bowed, all at once, a perfect, synchronized 90-degree bow. My first instinct, panic. My second instinct, bow back, which I did, way too late, and way too deep. I'm pretty sure I almost headbutted my own knees. Then, I heard a whisper from behind me. That's the boss's husband. My heart didn't just drop. It plummeted straight into my stomach, and probably through the floor. My wife, bless her heart, leaned in and whispered so calmly, "Relax, they won't kill you, unless you really deserve it." You know what? That did not make me feel better, not even a little bit. We walked inside, and the house was so enormous, I got lost twice just trying to find the bathroom. It was like a palace, and everywhere we went, people lowered their heads when my wife passed. Nobody looked her in the eyes. Me, oh, they looked at me. They looked at me with a strange mix of curiosity and a whole lot of pity. That's when it finally hit me. I hadn't just moved to a new house, I had moved into an entirely different world. A world with unspoken rules and a lot of men in black suits. That night, after summoning all my courage, I asked her very, very carefully, "So, honey, do I need to learn self-defense or something?" She paused for a moment, just thinking, and then she gave me this beautiful, reassuring smile. "No," she said, "just remember to always stand behind me." I nodded so fast my head almost fell off. And in that moment, for the very first time in my life, I realized something incredibly important. Being a husband can be a very, very dangerous job.
The second chapter of My Wife is a Gangster. My wife owns the neighborhood. The next morning, I decided to take a walk. I really wanted to see the neighborhood, maybe buy some breakfast, maybe feel normal again. That feeling lasted about 30 seconds. The moment people saw my wife walking beside me, everything changed. Shop owners stood up straighter. Old men bowed politely. One store owner even rushed out and handed her a big bag of groceries. "For you, boss," he said, with a very respectful nod. "Boss." I glanced over at my wife. She just smiled sweetly and said, "Good morning." We walked into a small bakery. I saw some fresh bread and pointed at it. But before I could even think about reaching for my wallet, the cashier just shook his head. "No charge," he said firmly. I leaned in and whispered to my wife, "Why is everything free?" She just shrugged. "Habit," she replied, as if it was the most normal thing in the world. Outside, the streets were clean. I mean, suspiciously clean. There were no arguments, no loud voices, nothing. It just felt unnervingly peaceful. At one point, a man accidentally bumped into my wife. He completely froze. "I'm so sorry," he exclaimed, bowing 3 times before backing away like he had just seen a ghost. I leaned closer to her again and whispered, "Do people always act like this around you?" She nodded, her expression perfectly calm. "They're just being polite." I really wasn't convinced. As we walked home, it finally hit me. This neighborhood didn't just respect my wife. It survived because of her. The peace, the order, it was all her doing. That night, I asked her carefully, "So, if I ever get lost around here, can I just tell people I'm your husband?" She laughed, a warm, genuine laugh, and held my arm. "Of course you can." I pressed a little further, and, "Will that keep me safe?" She smiled again, that same sweet but mysterious smile. "Very," she promised. I slept better that night than I had in a long time. That's when I realized this was probably the safest neighborhood in all of Japan. Chapter 3 of the incredible novel, My Wife is a Gangster, Breakfast with my wife felt more dangerous than a gunfight. The morning was quiet, a little too quiet. My wife sat at the head of the table, looking almost ordinary in her pajamas. The fabric was soft, with cute patterns that completely contradicted the scene. Across from her sat 6 high-ranking men, all dressed in immaculate black suits. They sat stiffly, their food completely untouched. Instead of small talk, their conversation was about territory, money, and betrayal. All the while, my wife was just casually buttering her toast, acting like this was a completely normal family meal. The contrast was mind-boggling. At one point, one of the men dared to raise his voice just a fraction. Instantly, the entire room froze. An icy tension filled the air. My wife didn't even bother to look up from her plate. She calmly took a sip of her tea, and, with a voice as smooth as silk but as sharp as a blade, she said, "Do you want both hands when you leave today?" The silence that followed was absolute. The man who had spoken bowed so fast I genuinely thought his neck might break. He stammered, "I apologize." The conversation resumed, but this time it was much quieter. I just stared into my coffee cup, avoiding eye contact with absolutely everyone. This was not the time to be noticed. Of course, my luck ran out. One of them turned his gaze to me and asked, "What do you think?" I swear, my soul temporarily left my body. I managed to paste on a polite, slightly terrified smile and replied, "I think. The weather is very nice today." To my relief, my wife smiled. A genuine, warm smile just for me. Shortly after, the meeting ended. The men all bowed deeply again before filing out of the room. Only then did I feel like I could breathe again. I leaned toward my wife and whispered, "Is breakfast always like this?" She just tilted her head, that innocent look back on her face. "Pretty much," she said. I took a long sip of my coffee and made a critical life decision right then and there. From that day forward, I would never, ever argue with my wife about anything. And that's when I learned my wife was the real boss. Chapter 4 of My Wife is a Gangster. Someone tried to kill me. And my wife found out first. Dinner that night seemed normal. A little too normal, if you ask me. The table was quiet, the air was still, and the food smelled good. Suspiciously good. I picked up my spoon, ready to take the first bite of soup. But before it could even reach my mouth, my wife's hand shot out, intercepted my spoon, and she tasted the soup herself. She froze. It wasn't a dramatic theatrical freeze. She wasn't angry. She was just still. After a moment, she calmly placed the spoon back on the table. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, but it carried an undeniable weight. "Don't swallow." I just blinked at her. "What?" I asked, completely baffled. "Spit it out," she repeated, her tone gentle but firm. I didn't hesitate. I spat it out immediately, no questions asked. Then, she stood up, smoothed down her sleeves, and walked purposefully toward the door, leaving me alone in the silent dining room. Less than 10 minutes later, I could hear noises from the courtyard. Someone was kneeling out there. I could hear begging, then crying. I just stayed at the table. I knew better than to ask questions. When my wife returned, she went to the sink, washed her hands thoroughly, and then sat down beside me. She took my hand in hers, her touch surprisingly gentle. "Are you okay?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. I just nodded, my voice gone. In the background, a man screamed. My wife's grip on my hand tightened just a little. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice filled with genuine regret. I should have checked first. I just stared at her, trying to process everything. She looked truly worried. Not about the poison, not about the man screaming in the courtyard, but about me. And in that moment, I understood something profound. In this house, in this life with her, danger was just part of the scenery. Her love, that was the real protection. A small smile played on her lips as she broke the silence. "So, takeout?" I nodded again. a weak smile forming on my own face. We ordered noodles, and you know what? I slept very, very well that night. After that, I never tasted my food first again.
Chapter 5. Date night, mafia style. I planned a normal date, but my wife brought 6 bodyguards. You know, I was really trying to be a good husband. I put a lot of thought into it. The plan was simple, classic even. A nice, quiet restaurant, a romantic movie afterward, maybe some dessert. Just a normal, sweet date night. I booked the best table, picked out my best shirt, and waited. And then she arrived. My wife, she looked absolutely stunning in a beautiful black dress, her hair done perfectly. My heart skipped a beat, and then it skipped a few more, because right behind her, 6 enormous men in identical black suits followed her into the restaurant. All at once, you could have heard a pin drop. The entire restaurant went completely silent. Every single person stopped eating, stopped talking, and just stared. The waiter, who had been so cheerful just a moment before, rushed over to us. He bowed so deeply I was genuinely worried he might fall right through the floor. We were led to our table, and as we sat down, the bodyguards positioned themselves around us. Not discreetly in the corner, or no, they stood nearby. Very, very nearby. It felt like we were dining inside a human fortress. I leaned over and whispered, "Honey, do they really have to stay?" She just gave me this polite, sweet smile and said, "It's for our safety, dear." I just nodded. At that point, I chose survival over romance. Dinner was surprisingly perfect. The food was incredible, the best I've ever had. No one stared at us anymore. No one dared to speak too loudly. It was the most peaceful meal of my life. Next, we went to the movie theater. As the lights dimmed, my wife leaned in close and whispered in my ear, "If anyone pulls out a weapon, just stay behind me." I didn't ask questions. You learn not to. Thankfully, no one pulled out a weapon. The movie itself was terrible, but the popcorn was excellent. And as I sat there, munching away, it hit me. This was her normal. The constant sense of danger, the need for protection, the heavy weight of responsibility. This was her life, every single day. When the movie finally ended, she turned to me, held my hand, and asked with a genuine smile, "Did you have fun?" I looked at her, at the woman who commanded armies but still wanted to know if I enjoyed our date, and I smiled back. "I did," I said, and I honestly meant it. Next time, I promised myself I'd plan an even safer date. Maybe we could just stay home.